So we are on the bottom of 116b, towards the bottom of the Mishnah. Gozel Sodom Echavero. Somebody steals a field. Now, of course, if you steal a field, it's not like stealing a movable object. The field is still there. But someone takes control of the field in Talua Masikin, and um, and then it is taken from the thief by masikin, which translates here as extortionist. Like, the mafia comes and takes your field, takes the stolen field. If this is like a regional phenomenon, right? That this is an organized group. It could be governmental, or as I said, maybe it's a mafia kind of thing. But they're taking over other people's fields as well. Omerlo, the thief can say to the original owner, it's like, I didn't take anything from you. The field's still there. You go get it back from the mafia. In other words, he's not liable for damages that could cost, because sure, he may have. So the article suggests that maybe it was like moving the boundary marker, right? So he's like, okay, I moved the boundary marker, but now it's not under my control anymore anyway. The field is the same field. Go take it, right? He does not have liability. Now, but if the field was taken because of the thief, so it's a little unclear what this means. The Gemara will discuss it. So there's circumstances where the thief is liable and has to replace the field, as it were, like has to buy me another field, a comparable field, compensate me for the loss of the field. What exactly the case is here, we'll see in the book.
There's a discussion of something that seems related in Gittin right before the Kamsa Bar Kamsa narrative about,
right.
I forget, it's not the same term, but people were extorting fields and they were trying to figure out how to render justice without destroying the entire economy. That was right before the Kamsa Bar Kamsa narrative.
Yeah,
I don't
have
remember.
a vague recollection.
Yeah, I don't remember all the details.
Okay, good cross source to look at. Yeah. Mandatani masikin lo mishtabesh. Like the word masikin is accurate. You're not mixing it up. Mandatani matzikin lo mishtabesh, and also you could read it matzikin. Both could be right. Both are viable readings of the Mishnah. Mandatani matzikin lo mishtabesh. What's the source for this word matzikin? That it means people who are taking fields. Dechsiv, we have the verse b'matzor u'v'matzok. In the klala and the curses given by the Torah, it refers to being under siege and matzok. So matzok is some kind of oppression. Masikin, or you could read it masikin with a sanat, lo. That's also not incorrect. You'll see we have another verse, yarash hatzlatzah. Also from the curses in the Torah, that the locust will inherit your property. And then the Targum then is Yachsanine Saka. The Saka will inherit it. So Saka is like the locusts are stealing it from you, as it were. So you can also have an etymology of the word Masikin, which indicates people who are stealing. Okay, it's just a little etymological note. Now, the last clause in the Mishnah was if it was taken because of the thief. What does that mean? If so, you could say it means that the mafia. I'm going to call them the mafia. Okay, like I said, it could be a governmental thing. Confiscating land by force. But if you want to explain that it's the mafia is stealing the field from the thief, the law and sua kolearasa, but didn't take any other property in the neighborhood. So maybe that's what it means. It's taken because of this robbery. In other words, they had something against this guy. They had a grudge against this guy or some kind of claim, and they forcibly took his land because of against the robber himself. But like, what do you need to even say that in the Mishnah? Because that's implied from the first the first case in the Mishnah, which says that imakas medina, if it's a regional thing that they're taking lots of land in the area, then the thief is off the hook. That implies that if they're not, in other words, if they're only taking this piece of land from this thief, that's already implied. So what do you need to state? The case in the Mishnah is a separate case. Where it says, well, you'd still need it. It's talking about someone who someone is like dangling this field in front of the mafia, right? So since you cause that person's field to be confiscated or to be taken, you have to replace. Or you could read the answer this way: it's a case where the other kochavim, the local authorities or whatever, the local anti-Semites, they force the thief to dangle this stolen property, in front of the mafia, right? They said, go tell them what a nice apartment building you have, right? Perfect for a for a drug den, or I don't know. And so the thief goes and shows them this building along with his other buildings, and they take all the buildings, including the stolen one. So since the thief is the one that directly caused this field to be lost along with the other fields in the neighborhood, that's why he's responsible. Okay. So there was a guy who was showing the mafia where all the good wheat was in the home of the Reish Galusa, or the property of the Reish Galusa. So and then the wheat was taken. So the Reish Galusa has a claim here. When he goes to Rav Nachman says that the guy who introduced the bad guys to the wheat, he's responsible. He has to pay. Rav Yosef Achore de Rav Huna Bar Chia. Rav Yosef was sitting in the back. Rav Huna Bar Chia coming to Rav Nachman. Rav Huna was sitting in front of Rav Nachman. Amalei Rav Huna Bar Chia or Rav Nachman. So they're having a little conversation in the bleachers here. Dina or Knasa? Is this a fine or is this like real liability? Amalei Rav Nachman answers Masisi. Let's look at the Mishnah. The language of the Mishnah is it sounds like a real obligation, like a real liability, not a fine. And we've just showed that the Mishnah is talking about where the thief is dangling the property in front of the mafia. So that would indicate that it is really a real liability and not just a fine instituted by the rabbis. Rav Nachman believes, and Rav Yosef says, "My nafkalachine, like, what do you care? You know, so what's the difference? You got to pay, right? Why are you asking if it's liability or fine? Anyway, medina gamrina mine, because if it's real liability, so we can apply the principles of the case to other cases, right? You can also look at but if it's a fine, so when the rabbis institute a fine in a particular case, it doesn't mean you can say, well, here's a similar case, a case that appears to have similar principles, we should apply the fine there. No, you didn't say that. The fine is more restricted to the original situation. We're not saying the miknasa logamina. Where do you get that idea from? That you can't apply the principles of the fine to another case. The Tanya, we have a originally they said that someone who takes your produce and makes it tame, or someone who takes your wine and pours from it for avodah zarah, and that makes it no longer usable by you. So it's like it doesn't look any different. It's some kind of like the land, right? It doesn't look any different, but it's now changed its status. So originally they said there's liability here. Chazru Lomar, and then they changed. Later authorities said Afamadameya. Even it even applies to somebody who mixes truma and chulin, right? So if you mix it together, then you don't know which is truma, which is chulin. You have to treat the chulin as truma, even though it's not chulin. It's not like you're designating it as truma, but you can't tell if it's truma or chulin. So you've changed the status of the chulin. So they applied it. Um, they applied the same idea to this other case. Charlie, you look like you want to say something.
Well, yeah, we are in the Ushami Yomi right now. We are having multiple chapters about this very issue in the Secta Truma.
Okay.
Uh, if there's
So
enough of the
maybe,
chulin, it can actually be nullified.
I'm happy to let you take over, by the way. Feel free.
Oh, go ahead.
Khosru in. So now so this case implies that but later on they said, oh yeah, also Madame, also this mixing of true and clean. Lo Khosru lo. So if they hadn't like revisited the issue and said this also applies to Madame, then we wouldn't have been able to apply it ourselves, or someone wouldn't have been able to come along and say, based on this ruling, I'm also going to include Madame. No, it sounds like that they revisited it and formally included Midamea in this payment, in this liability. My time, what's the reason? Wouldn't that be because it's a knas? So the only way you can extend the knas to a new case is to revisit and say we're also establishing a knas applying for this case. That's not like a meaning, but if they hadn't done that, then we wouldn't be able to apply that principle. The answer is well, not necessarily. First, the original case was they thought that, or the theory was that we're preventing like a large loss, right? So you've got a big, barrel of wine, and you're making it, you're causing the whole thing to lose its value or usability to you. Perhaps saying, but a small thing like um, if you mix truma and chulin, so it's not like you can't use it anymore. It still has value, right? Just truma is valued less than chulin because it can only be consumed by kohanim, right? But it still has value. You could still sell it to a kohen, right? Maybe for a smaller price. So the loss that is incurred is smaller. So that's what they thought. In the end, they said, no, you know what? It's like no difference. Like a loss is a loss, whether it's a minor loss or a major loss. That's the that's the case. That's where the liability is. So mentioning it separately was not like a general thing about fines, but it was this particular one. Like, how do we understand the original fine? It includes this case. Amy said, so the question is that right? We have another brisa. First, they said that he had a different version of this brisa, or a brisa with a different version of the event. Originally, the kanas was about hamatame v'hamadameya, someone who makes something tame or someone who mixes full in truma. And then they went back and they said we're also going to include the case of yayin nesa. Chazru in lo chazru lo. So that implies that same thing. Like now you can't say that the case that they revisited was a smaller loss. It's not the case. In the Nasek, you lose the whole value. My time allow me shouldn't go So again, we have the implication that you can that you would have to establish a new knas or reestablish the knas for this case and not just apply the principles. The rest is low, not necessarily. Meikara Sabre Karabi Avi. What's happening here was originally they held like Rabbi Avin, that which is Rabbi Avin. Just a second. I lost the thread here. 1 second. Oh, okay. So Rabbi Avin was the one that says have say muat lo chashu. So first they held like Rabbi Avin, that they thought that that yayin nesach would not be included. And it was also Rabbi Yirmiyah. In the end, they held like Rabbi Yirmiyah. Which was Rabbi Yirmiyah? Just a second. I have lost my thread. Um, Anybody? What am I missing here? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what the Rav Avin Rav Yirmiyah reference here is. Oh, we're coming to it. Okay, we're coming to it. Mekar Sover Rabbi Avin. Oh, right, it's right here. I'm sorry. The Amar Rav Avin. What's Rav Avin's opinion? Zarak Chaitz Mitchilas Arba L'Sof Arba. Now we're talking about Hilchos Shabbos and carrying and moving an object in the public forearms in the public domain. So if you shoot an arrow, um, forearmless, like from the beginning of the forearm measure to the end. The kara shirayin bahali chatza, and the arrow, by the way, is going through somebody's laundry in the yard there, and tears it. Potter. Then you don't have to pay for the material that you damage. Akira because when it comes to moving something on Shabbos, you have to have akira and hanacha. You have to have picking up and putting down, right? Um, so so the so you have both umischayev ben nafsha, and so the you know the you can't just say that after he shot the arrow, you can't separate the arc of the arrow is part of the whole thing. That I mean, the principle here is kamma rabbi, right? That since you are liable for death penalty for violating Shabbos, assuming it was on purpose with witnesses, etc., any monetary liability it goes away, right? Because of kamma rabbi, because we only assess the stricter penalty, which obviously is the capital punishment in this case, and because you need akira and hanacha, so the whole arc of the arrow is part of this act. You can't say that once you shot the arrow, then you became liable to the death penalty, and then the arrow tore something. It's a separate act. No, we don't say that in Rabbi Yavin. So similarly with the wine, like as soon as you pick up the wine, you're liable for when you pick it up for the purpose of avodah zarah, you're liable for the whole thing. So lifting the wine is a prerequisite to pouring it on the altar for avodah zarah. So according to Rabbi Yavin, or extending this idea of Rabbi Yavin, it's a kamma midrabanan thing with the wine. Or the stove, so then you wouldn't be liable for the monetary damage to the wine. But then they said, oh, you know what? We're going to include the case of the wine. You could be Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yirmiyah says in the case of the wine, first you pick it up and you're caught it. That's the theft part. You become liable, from the moment you pick it up with the intent to remove it from the property or from the usability by the owner. You're already you've incurred that liability, and then you pour it for avodah zarah. That's a separate thing. So even though that's penalty, it's a separate act. So that's why they were uncertain. Like first they didn't include that case, but then they decided, oh, because we're going to hold like Rabbi, that case is also included. But it's not just applying the it's not just applying the principle of the knas to a different case. Okay. Rav Bar Yehuda equal of a Abiyone. Rav came to this place called Be Abiyone. Also, Lakami Rav came to Rav Amalai. Like, what have you been dealing with lately in the court? I hope you have any interesting shilas come to you. Malay said, the case where a Jew is forced by idolaters and non-Jews to show them where um, to show where somebody's money is or property is, right? So you can steal it. But you have to. And I said, yeah, you're liable. You show them where it is, and he stole it. You have to pay. You're liable for it. Amalei, Adar Uvdin Lamar. He said, you know what? That was a mistake. You should make the victim has to return the compensation to the guy who showed the thieves where to find the stuff. There really was not liability here at the time. If we have a brisa, exactly this case, you're not liable be not and beyond, but if you actually gave the property over to the ultimate thieves, then fine. But if you just show them where it is, you're not really liable. So Amar Rabba. Rabba says, "In Haramiatmo kenasa v'nasan biyad dame." Rabba says, if they forced you to do it, at the risk of your life or whatever, then that's one thing. But if it was your idea, right? If you're trying to cozy up to them, if for whatever reason, maybe you have a grudge against the guy whose property it is, if you volunteered the information of where to find this, that makes you liable. How covered on Suhu of the Chachavim? So this is actually kind of interesting because it's kind of like the RICO statutes, I think, right? It's like they're finding a way to, it seems to me like, strictly speaking, who's responsible for this is the Ovdei Kohavim. Now, we may not have jurisdiction over them, right? But for you just having shown them where it is, you haven't really done anything. But the rabbis decided that there's a liability here because the situation is untenable, I think, right? It's like you can't go around doing that. But we can't allow that to happen. Okay, how governed on Su of the Kohavim there was someone who was forced to show where Rav Mari's wine was stored. Amrulay, and so the mafia says to him, all right, now pick it up and bring it with us, right? And he did so. Asal coming to Ravashi, so he comes to Ravashi. Patrina, and Ravashi says, it's okay, you're off the hook because you were being forced. Amarle Rabban Ravashi, so the rabbi said to Ravashi about Tanya, what about the Brisa? If you actually were, handing it over to them, then you're responsible. Ravashi answers, that's if they didn't first. When are you chayiv if you didn't first take the ultimate robbers to the property but brought it to? But if you first were, take them there and then they said, now bring it with us, Mikle Kalya, you already like consumed it, right? It's already as if it were in the possession of the mafia, right? When you take it and hand it over, it's like, look, everybody knows who's in charge here. Once they discover the stuff and it's their intention to confiscate it, it's already confiscated. You physically handing it over to them is not really you stealing it, right? It's as if it's already theirs. The fact that you're doing their dirty work is whatever, for whatever reason, but that does not make you liable to the owner. If someone is forcing you to do the following, give me that bale of hay. Oh, that bunch of grapes. And you did it. You're liable to the owner of the stuff. So here's a case where the extortionist is already on site, right? So we should, according to you, Ravashi, we should say that we already consider it lost. The fact that you handed over to him, like here we're saying, you're chayav, right? Against Ravashi. So my skin could go on the time betray Avrei Nara. Here we're talking about two sides of the river. So yes, the mafia can see it. He's on site, but he can't reach it himself, right? He can't exercise control over it because he can't cross the river, right? So therefore, Therefore, you are liable in this case because it's not under the control sufficiently of the mafia guy. They can. I mean, you can also see this from the language used. The katane hoshi. Yeah, it says like pass it to me, right? Lotane tain. Let's say give it to me. So passing it to me implies it's like out of my reach, so you have to pass it to me. I mean that. Okay. Al Shuta, there was a trap, like a lobster trap or a fox trap. Um, a Hayam or Didihu, Hayam or Didihu, each one's claiming it's mine, right? The common animal. Or in the case we'll actually call one. Okay, it doesn't matter. And you're arguing over whose it is. Also, Chadmina, Nasara Lefarhagna the Malka. So one of the parties went and hands it over to the tax collector or whatever, the royal treasurer. Amar Abaye says, Halomar Ana ki Masri Didi Masri. He can't be made liable for stealing this item from the other guy because he can claim it wasn't yours, it was mine. And I gave it, I decided to give it to the king for whatever reason. Okay. However, the Hava by Achvuye Ativna Bechaver. There was a guy who came to show somebody else's haystack to the king, the officers of the king, the tax collector. Also, look how much I came to Rob. I'm right, he said, below Tachve. Definitely don't do it. Malay said, Machvina, I will. Yasser of Kana Kame to Rav, of Kana Simir, Shame, Shamte Lukoe Mine. And when he heard this guy being disrespectful to Rav, he basically broke his neck, like he attacked him. Very Ravi Rave, Vanayach Ulfu Shachvu Barosh Kusonicha. Rav applied the following pasuk: your children have fainted, they lie fallen at the head of every street like an ox tapped in their neck. So it's comparing the people in the pasuk who are basically being dominated by outsiders to an ox. Ma toze kevan shenafel b'michmar ein merachmin love. Just as the ox, once it's in the trap, there's like they don't take any pity on it. Like his fate is sealed. Same too. Once a Jew has his property confiscated by a non-Jew, by an idolater, it's done. Like they're not gonna give up on the money. They'll even kill you for it. So in other words, he's justifying who was it? Rav Kahana's attacking this guy because like once you've given yourself over to giving property to the non-Jews, to someone else's property, then you'll even go so far as to kill the owner, right? So therefore, it's like a rodent kind of thing. Like the fact that you kill them is justified. Only Rav, so Rav said to him, Kahana, Ad ha'idna havu parsai, v'lokavte ashvichustamim. Like until now, who were the outsiders? Who were the idolaters? Who were the Persians? Who, they didn't have any problems with killing us. But now it's not Persians that are oppressing us or that are controlling us. It's the Greeks. The custom of shvichustamim, they're at least they're at least more law abiding, right? They're not going to murder you over property like the Persians were. But Amre Muradin, and what they're gonna like. I understand why you did it because you're basing your actions on being controlled by Persians, but actually you're being controlled by Greeks, and they're not going to buy my theory that that you were justified in killing this guy. So Kum Safar Israel, you better escape. You better go to the land of Israel. The Kabbalah, the Takshil, or Yochanan Shava Shemim. But if you go there, I want you to agree that you're not going to ask, you're not going to question Rabbi Yochanan's rulings. Rabbi Yochanan is the head honcho there in Eretz Yisrael. Like you're not going to question his rulings for 7 years. Like that's your punishment, right? You have to keep quiet in the base methods. Also, the Reish Lakish, the Yosef Messiah Masuf Yom Rabbanim. So he goes there to Israel, and he goes to Rabbi Yochanan. One of Rabbi Yochanan's colleagues was Reish Lakish, and Reish Lakish was he was summarizing the shir of Rabbi Yochanan to the other students. Amarli, so Rav Kana said, Reish Lakish, where's Reish Lakish? In a way, Amai, why are you asking? Amarli, he said, Hi Kushav, hi Kushav, hi Peruka, hi Peruka. I've got all these questions and answers about his shir. Amarli, Reish Lakish, also Reish Lakish. And so they told Reish Lakish what's going on, that this guy Rav Kahana is here. They just arrived, and he's got a lot of questions and a lot of answers about your shir. Amarli Rabbi Yochanan. So Reish Lakish was just summarizing Rabbi Yochanan's shir. He went and told Rabbi Yochanan. So he went and told Rabbi Yochanan, Ariel and Bava, a lion has come from Bava. In other words, there's somebody, you better be on your toes tomorrow, in your shir tomorrow, because this guy is going to be in shir, and he's going to be asking a lot of good questions. Next day, Osve Bidara Kamma coming to Rabbi Yochanan. So Rav Kana comes into the actual shir of Rabbi Yochanan the next day. When he sits in the front row, Amar Shema, but look, Rabbi Yochanan gives a shir, no questions, right? Shema Tov Lo actually, and the next day he gave another shir, no questions. Anachte Akare Shevadari. So they thought maybe Rav Kana is a little, maybe he's a little in awe of Rabbi Yochanan because he's sitting in the front row. So they moved him back to the seventh row. They kept moving him back until he's in the back row. I'm going to Rabbi Yochanan Shimon the Lakish, so Rabbi Yochanan says to Lakish, Arisham Rav says, "Oh, this guy is a lion. He comes from Bava. He's a fox. He's like for nobody. He doesn't have anything to say in my shir." Amar, so it says, "Hey Rabba, the honey Sheva Dare Lahavu Chiluf Sheva Shani and Rav." So I was, told by Rav to wait 7 years, right? I'm gonna kind of make that into a metaphor for the 7 rows, and I moved back, and now I'm free to ask the question. Kamma Kali, he got up, Amalei, Nether Marbaration. He says, you know what? Give the shir again. I'm a shmata, the action. So he did the shir again, and here now he's asking the questions. Okay, maybe there are comments. So they put him back in the first row. Amar Shmata, the action. Now he keeps at it, right? Like even though he's in the first row again, he figures his penance has been done. So when now he's free to ask questions. Rav Yochanan, he was sitting on 7 rugs. Okay. Shalfi lechada b'skarta mitusa. As Rav Yochanan told him, remove 1 rug. So there's only 6. I'm a shmata. Actually, he said this shir, and so Rav Yochanan is figuring maybe there's something up with the number 7 here. But Rav Kana keeps asking questions. Until he keeps taking away rugs until Rav Yochanan is sitting on the bare ground. Rav Yochanan Gabar he was old. And his eyebrows were very long and they hung over his eyes, and he couldn't see Rav Kana. Amalei said, uncover my eyes so that I can see it. This now we're getting into what sounds, some metaphors here, but it's unclear what's going on with the eyebrows. So they took some kind of a silver comb and they, raised his eyebrows so he could see them. Because of the prite he saw that Rav Kahana's lips were that he had a wound, right? Savar achuch kam machayech, and he thought, there was a wound on his facial area, his lips, and he thought he's laughing at me. College staff did not laughter. He's very dispirited, and Rav Kahana died from the, it's unclear. It seems like we're saying that Rav Kahana died because he caused this distress to Rabbi Yochanan. I mean, he could have just told him, I was told not to ask you questions. But so Lamacha, I'm going to Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi, does he have like that mock me? And the lay, they said, dark he wasn't mocking you, that's what he looks like. All Gabin Marta, so Rabbi Yochanan went to his burial place, his cave, the catacomb where he was buried. How's the Hava Hadrale Achmed? He saw that there was a snake with that had its tail in its mouth, basically blocking the cave. Amarle said to the snake, Achna achna, Pesach puma fi kani sarave totami. Open your mouth, let me let the teacher go into the student, into the character. Lo pasa, the snake didn't listen. You can't stop it to father. Yeah, this is let a colleague go into the colleague's character. Lo pasa. That didn't work. You can't tell me it's allowed. Let the student go into the master. Right? In other words, I, Rav Yochanan, am actually, the student of Rav Kana. And then Pasachah, then the snake opens up. Barachme Vochme. So Yochanan prayed for Rachme, for mercy, and he did Tchias Mason. He basically took Rav Kana out of his grave, brought him back to life. In a way, he said, the dark of the Marahachi, if I knew that you weren't mocking me, that's just what you look like, local to that, then I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have become disheartened and dispirited, and you wouldn't have died as a result of your grief or whatever. Now come back with me to Rishi. I'm aware of kind of says, you must see a rachmi too low, shechivna azuna. Sure, I'll come back with you, but like I want to make sure that this Chiyas isn't temporary. Like you should pray that that my life, which is given back to me, is in full measure. Below low zilna. If not, I'm not leaving the caterpillar. Oil the chalif shata chalif. Since like the time of my death has passed, like it passed. I'm back to life, but I'm not going to risk coming back to your yeshiva, right? Because the same thing could happen. Kaire Uthman. So Rabbi Yochanan woke him up and really, brought him fully back to life. It's very unclear what was going on here. He's partially back to life. He's like, only if you complete the process, and he's fine, I'll complete the process. And then he asked Rav Kana all of his questions, like all of the things that he wasn't sure about. Rav Kana answered them all. That's why Rabbi Yochanan said that Rabbi Yochanan, who had originally said that to his students that your Torah is good Torah, now he's telling them that it's really the Babylonians who have a greater understanding of the law and the tradition. So fascinating story, a lot of unclear things, but the point appears in other places also that the at least the Talmud Bavli, maybe Charlie can comment on the Yerushalmi, but the Talmud Bavli takes the position that the Babylonians were really the smart ones, and they conceived in places that the Palestinian Jews had a certain advantage by being in Eretz Yisrael, but they weren't as sharp as the Babylonian sages.
Yeah, the Yerushalmi doesn't have a lot of comment from the Babylonian Amoraim. It's mostly the Eretz Israel Amoraim. Although it's interesting, this is not the only example of someone getting resurrected from the dead in the Bavli.
Oh yeah. For example, you have the Purim story, right?
Yep. I was thinking of that. Yeah.
Who is it? Rava and Rav Yosef, I think.
Rava and Rabbi Zera, I think.
Rav Zera, right? Yeah, it was also a strange story. Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can finish to the Mishnah before it's too late. How Diachme Taksa Rabbi Abba. There was somebody who showed Rabbi Abba's silk garment to the officers of the king, and they confiscated it. So these three were judging the informer. V'yasiv Rabbi Yula Gabayo. Rabbi Yula was sitting there. So they thought, really, we should make this informer liable from this mission. Danas Hadin, Zika Sachayev, if someone rules on a case and makes somebody get someone off the hook who really should have been liable, the Chivas of or the opposite, I think that you make a mistake in your judgment. Masha also be showing me so the judgment stands, but there was an injustice done here. So you, the judge, have to make it whole from your own property. So this is kind of similar to the informer, right? The judge didn't actually confiscate the money or the property from the victim, but he caused caused it to be done. Like maybe he caused the bailiff or the police or whatever to carry out this judgment. So he is the cause, and the judge himself is liable. I'm aware of the law, and the law says, okay, well, I was upset about this. No, that's only if the judge was actually enforcing the decision, right? Otherwise, he's off the hook. Amarle, so he said to Rabba, Zil Gabi Rabbi Shimon ben Eliakim, Rabbi Lazar ben Padas, Daine Dina Gaberi, go to Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Lazar, who make judge who rule on cases like this where you're causing something but not doing it directly. So you went to them; they're the experts. So they said, yeah, according to the Mishnah, you're liable for the judge are liable for your incorrect decision. And what is from a different Mishnah we use? This is our Mishnah, right? If it's because of the thief, in other words, if it was the thief's idea, then you are chayav. We already decided, we already applied or understood the Mishnah to mean that if when are you liable? When you showed the mafia where to find this stuff. So you didn't do it via dime, you didn't do it directly, but you caused it to happen, so you're fine. Same with the judge. How governed of Mapid like Casa de Haspa. There was a guy who had someone else's silver cup that he was keeping for him. Saliku Ganavi Lave, and along come thieves. Shakle Yavu. So like they come into his house, and he takes the silver cup, and he says, here, take this and leave me alone, right? So they took the cup. So, but he handed it over. Also, they came to Rabba. Patre, he says, no, you're off the hook. This is a case of somebody who's saving himself with somebody else's property. You should be chayav. Elam Ravashi, so Rashi says, Chazinan Inish Amitu. Adata Dide Asu. So it depends. If the guy who was holding the silver cup, is wealthy, so they came to his house because he's wealthy, right? We're going to go to the rich guy's house. We're going to find some good stuff. So if you could have given them your own stuff, right? When you give them the other guy's silver cup, give them you want to buy your safety, buy it with your own stuff. So if you use your friend's silver cup that you're holding for safekeeping, you're liable. Be low, but if it's not the case that you're a wealthy person, adopted cost lawsuit. You know why they came here? Because they knew that you have this silver cup, you have this valuable thing that belongs to your friend. That's why they came. That was the only thing you could buy them off with to save your life. So then you're not. You're not liable. How governed down the mafia agabe arnica the pigeon shvuyim. Somebody was holding, the tzedakah box that was for pigeon shvuyim, right? So probably a lot of money. Sliku gangbe rabe, so thieves come. Shakli other Neoliah, so they threaten him. So he says, "Here, take this purse, right? With the money." Also, they come to Rabba. So now they came to Rabba to is he liable or not? Patri says, "No, you're not liable. I don't buy it. It's not his money, so you're saving yourself with somebody else's money, with the tzedakah money, then you should be liable." He says this money was for pidyon shvuyim. Here's a guy who's in immediate danger from the robbers, and he's buying his freedom, right? This is pidyon shvuyim. Like the money was for pidyon shvuyim, and he's redeeming himself as a captive, as it were. So no need to repay the money. However, the Akni Basi Kamra Mabara Kami the Sliku in Mabar. There was somebody who there was a ferry boat. And somebody pushes to the front of the line, puts his donkey on the ferry boat, and then everybody else got on, buying lots of the way. And the donkey is is whatever, it's a crowded boat, and the donkey is frightened and is going to capsize the boat. Also, Gavra Malachle Lechamra the Gavra the Shage Lenara the So somebody comes and pushes the donkey overboard and it drowned. So he saved the boat and all the people on it from drowning, but at the expense of this donkey. Also coming to Lava, so they come to Lava. Patrick says you're off the hook. Like you're saving yourself with somebody else's property. So Rob answers, Jaime Caro Rose Fava. No, the guy who brought the donkey onto the boat he should have known better, right? And so he is a Rodef, right? He was about to cause the death of all these people, right? By having pushed his way. Like, it sounds to me like, that if the donkey's on a crowded boat, it's going to get frightened and it's going to behave in a way that's dangerous. So by pushing your way to the front and getting the donkey on the boat first, knowing that other people are going to get on the boat, you've put them all in danger. So since you're a Rodef. Yomar Rabba Tame, and Rabba is consistent. Yomar Rabba, Rodev Shei Rodev Achal Chaver L'Charav is a classic case of a Rodev, somebody who's chasing somebody else with the intent to kill him. The Shibra to kill him, and you damage something along the way. Bein Shel Nirlach, Bein Shel Kol Adam, whether it's of the person being chased or whether it's just a third party, you're liable. Sharim is Chayv B'Nafsho. Again, to come lemi derabin in the process of pursuing this person, you're to try to kill him, you are liable for capital punishment for being put to death, and monetary damage that you cause at the same time. You're not liable for it because it's someone you're dropping name. The near daf shashiber sakilim shalom. Therefore, what about the person who's being chased? Also, pater because your primary concern there is to save yourself, right? You're not if you're trying to escape with your life, you're not going to be. We don't hold you responsible for how careful you're being when you're running away. I will call on them. So that is regarding if you break something that belongs to the guy who's chasing you. I will call on them, but a third party chayav that you actually have to pay for. This is a classic case of being you can't save yourself at the expense of somebody else's property. Now, what if there was a third person involved? B is chasing A to kill him, and C is chasing B to kill B to prevent him from killing A. So what's the rule of Shiva versus Kalim? What if you broke something along the way? If C broke something, it doesn't matter whose it was, then you're exempt. But really, like the letter of the law would say that you have to be careful of other people's property, but if we allow you, like if we make you liable for this, we say, yeah, you can try to prevent this murder, but make sure you're careful, not to break anything while you're doing it. Nobody's going to want to be that guy, be the rescuer. So we're bending the rules, or suspending the rules to give a break to the guy who is trying to prevent the Rodef from killing somebody. Okay, we'll stop here. It was a long daf, and another long one tomorrow, I think, but we'll pick it up at the Mishnah tomorrow morning. David's away the rest of the week, so I will be filling in.
Great, Yasher Koach. Thank you.
Okay, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Yesh koyach.